Washington Journal continues.
Our guest now is Cenk Uygur, host of the Young Turks and founder and CEO of the TYT Network. Welcome back to the table.
Thank you, Paul.
Remind us of who are the Young Turks and what do they believe in?
Yes, we're the largest online news network in the world. We just passed CNN in all the rankings. And our politics are progressive, as you'll see throughout today. But it's not just about politics. We also have entertainment, sports, etc. We have 30 channels in the network. And part of the reason we dominate online.
What does it mean to be so big now?
It's fascinating. It's a little different. No matter where I go, people recognize me, and it's wonderful. People don't come up to plumbers and go, "Hey, great job on the plumbing," right? But they come up to me all the time and thank me. It's great. So there's some haters too, but that's life in a big city.
One of our themes this morning has been the president's first 100 days in office. How is he doing?
Horrific. Just terrible. He's not getting any of his promises done, which thank God, because I don't agree with his promises. But also just, as I warned everybody in the election, general thorough incompetence. So whether it's foreign policy, where that is potentially very, very dangerous in a situation like North Korea, or it is domestic policy, where his incompetence is helping us, that he can't repeal Obamacare. I mean, if he can't get these tax cuts through, that'll be earth-shattering incompetence, because this whole town can't wait to give tax cuts to the rich. If he can't make that happen, boy, then he's worse than I thought.
Let's put phone numbers on the bottom of the screen for our guest. Republicans call 202-748-8001, Democrats 748-8000, and Independents 202-748-8002. We'll have about 25 more minutes with Cenk Uygur, host of the Young Turks. Who did you vote for in 2016?
Well, in the primaries, I voted for Bernie Sanders, and in the general election, I voted for Hillary Clinton.
So what do you make of the Democratic approach to the fact that they're out of power, both on the Hill and in the White House so far this year?
Yeah, well, so it's bifurcated, my answer to that. So their approach so far this year has been fine. They're resisting everything Trump is doing, largely speaking. You know, you've got a couple of Heitkamp and Manchin votes for Gorsuch, but other than that, given how deeply unpopular Donald Trump is, they're doing a fine enough job of standing up to him. On the other hand, I find the Democratic Party overall, on a macro level, to also be institutionally corrupt. So I don't trust them at all, and I believe that they could easily compromise on some of these tax cuts and give the Republicans what they want. They have the same donors.
Here's something you said in Mother Jones not too long ago about the Democratic Party. Let them keep thinking what they're going to think. You said of the Democratic Party's consultant class, we're going to rout them. It's a whole new world. And yes, new media will drive us to totally new results. It'll be a much more progressive future. They have no idea what's going to hit them. First of all, tell us what you mean by consultant class.
So here in Washington, there is a group of folks, the entire industry of Democratic consultants, of course Republican ones as well. They run campaigns for specific congressmen, senators. They're given those campaigns or advised in that direction by the DNC and other groups. And what they do is they charge a ton of money to run these campaigns. And one of the primary things that they use, Paul, is TV ads. So now TV ads in the past, to be fair to them, had worked. Now they work a lot less. And then Donald Trump proved that, got outspent 2-1 by Hillary Clinton, but did digital ads and wound up winning anyway. But the reason that they do ineffective things like old school mailings and TV is because it costs more. So the more that it costs the Democratic candidate, the more money the consultant makes. He takes a 15% commission on all TV ads. So he actually does not want you to do the most effective thing in politics, which is to knock on doors. And I can tell you 1,000 stories about how effective that is, because he doesn't get 15% commission on your volunteers knocking on doors. He gets 15% commission on you running expensive and now these days inefficient TV ads. So they are incentivized to lead the candidates in the wrong direction, and boy, have they ever.
Before we get to calls, what is your interpretation of resistance to the president among the Democrats? Is it, does it have a common set of issues? Is it social? Is it economic? Is it regional? What is the approach?
Yeah. So today I'm going to give a larger speech about what the real resistance is at noon here in Washington, D.C. And it is not about just resistance to Trump. It's about resistance to the entire system. So if the Democratic Party thinks, oh, this is cute, we'll use Donald Trump as a whipping boy and we'll get people to back our agenda and just go back to the status quo, they've got a rude awakening coming, because we're not going back to the status quo. We're here to topple the establishment.
We have Ryan from Tyler, Texas up first, Democratic line for Cenk Uygur, host of the Young Turks. Good morning, Ryan.
Hello.
Yes.
Is this me?
You are on the air.
I'm not in Texas. I'm in Pennsylvania.
I'm sorry.
All right, Cenk.
Go ahead then. Go ahead.
Ronnie. Okay, I'll fire away.
Thanks for correcting us.
As a Republican, that was an awesome point about the TV versus knocking on doors. I never even thought of that. That's very good, Cenk. Second, I'm not too much with progressive movements because like in a place like Venezuela and this leftist ideology, they're horrible. And three, Cenk, I want to. I do watch you on YouTube, and your best video I have to say is your election night. How I'm sure you've seen it, where you're all tearful in the beginning, and I'm sorry, but it brings me happiness. But hey, that was an awesome point about the TV versus knocking on doors. Okay, keep up your good work.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, Tom, I know that a lot of conservatives enjoyed our election night coverage, because we were not happy about the results. You're very right about that. But listen, on the most important point on how progressives govern, Venezuela is an outlier. It's now pretty much an authoritarian government. That is not how real progressives govern. You want to know what our #1 agenda is, Tom? It is to get money out of politics. It's to end the corruption. It's to drain the swamp. But to do it in a real way, not like Trump said, and then he stacks his cabinet full of Goldman Sachs guys and does both systemic and personal corruption. So progressivism stands for actually representing the voters instead of the donors. So I think that if you found out more about it, you might be shocked at how much you agree with it.
Let me try to bring Tyler, Texas back in. Ryan, is this you?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir. You're on the Democrats line. Good morning.
Yes, hi, Cenk. I remember you from your MSNBC show. I watched you on that when you had that show, and I thought you were really awesome for TV. And I don't follow your internet business as much, but I do remember you. And but I do want to say that President Trump has a lot of properties that he has not divested from, billions of dollars in properties, and some like Mar-a-Lago, which are private, but public money. You have to pay $200,000 for memberships, and he is profiting from this. His membership price has doubled since he's become president, and he has foreign leaders come there, and all the other properties that he is now profiting from. How come he has not been forced to divest? Number one, and is a conflict of interest, and number two, how come we have no one that's really in the Congress that's really loudly calling for impeachment hearings? I know I've heard about it, but he needs to be impeached because he had so many connections to a hostile government. His campaign worked with them, and that is obvious. And nobody's worked with Russia, and it's nobody's really looking into it.
Ryan, thank you. Let's hear from our guest.
Okay, Ryan, I appreciate it, man. And let me hit all the things that you just mentioned. First of all, thanks for watching me back in the day on TV. Come watch us on tytnetwork.com. We've got 300 million other people watching per month. So now on to the substantive questions that you asked. On the divesting, look, I think that he's breaking the emoluments clause of the Constitution. I think that he has enormous conflicts of interest problems. But if no one's going to enforce the law or the Constitution on that, there is one way that you have recourse, which is to vote him out of office. So make them pay a price, and not just Donald Trump, but every single Republican who supports him. As long as he keeps using our taxpayer money to go to Mar-a-Lago to keep golfing, well, then punish him and his party for doing that. That's how politics works. Make sure you show up and vote. And then on impeachment, now, you need a high crime and misdemeanor. I think that if you can prove, and that's a giant if you can prove that he had a financial connection to Russia, then I very much look forward to impeachment. And I think that there is a possibility that's exactly what happened. But for the moment being, we don't yet have that hard evidence, so you can't do impeachment without that evidence.
Let me get your reaction on a couple things. First is a tweet that the president sent just a short while ago. The Democrats, without a leader, he says, have become the party of obstruction. They are only interested in themselves and not in what's best for the U.S.
Okay, I am greatly amused by that comment. The party of obstruction, I guess it didn't pay any attention for the 8 years that Obama was in office to what the Republicans did. It is not arguable, and it is not a matter of neutrality, Republicans said, Democrats said. They broke the record on filibusters. They shattered it about 3 times the previous record. All they did was obstruct. They obstructed the Supreme Court justice for a full year, unprecedented. Nobody's ever seen that in American history before. So you'll excuse us if we don't agree with the dear leader of Donald Trump, and yes, block things that we fervently disagree with. It's the least we can do given your record-breaking obstruction.
Here is a headline from the Daily Banter. Cenk Uygur denies purity tests for progressives while demanding purity tests for progressives. What's a purity test, and are you demanding that for progressives?
So let me explain. I started a group called Justice Democrats, justdemocrats.com. That's the strong progressive wing of the Democratic Party. We're going to primary the hell out of these corporate Democrats, and we're coming. So establishment lackeys like the Daily Banter don't like that. And so in order to suck up to their friends in Washington, they write hit pieces on us. And so what is they say, oh my God, purity test. These progressives actually want you to be honest and not corrupt. Oh, they just want purity. Now, reality is Just Democrats have 23 items on their platform. 22 of them are not mandatory. It's not much of a purity test. There's only one thing that's mandatory. You cannot take corporate or PAC money. And there's a very good reason for that, because that means that we can trust you, you're honest, and you're going to represent the voters and not the donors. If the Daily Banter loves corporate Democrats that represent their donors and not us, have at it, Hoss. We'll see you in the battlefield of the primaries.
Richard, Canterbury, Connecticut, independent caller for Cenk Uygur. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Thanks for taking my call. I have 3 questions, if you don't mind. The first one is, Cenk, do you think that there should be term limits on Congress?
Well, so that's a really interesting question, Richard, and one that I think is debatable. Right now, I'm against it, and partly for the reasons of democracy. If people want to put someone into office for the 3rd time, I don't want to necessarily take that choice away from them. But I don't think it's out of the question. I think it's an interesting point.
What else, Richard?
My other question is, do you think patriotism plus Christianity equal liberty?
No, not at all. So first, you should know I'm agnostic. So I don't believe in the religions. And I think the religions are authoritarian by nature. I'm not interested in bowing my head to anybody's God. And America is a deeply secular country. And that's what makes us patriotic. That's what, because we put our faith in the reason of mankind, and that we could work together, and we're guided by a constitution and not by the Quran or the Bible or the Bhagavad Gita.
How about that last question, Richard?
Okay, I have one last question, and thank you for that answer. And then I have one short statement. Do you think if someone promotes Sharia, they should leave America?
No, and I'll tell you why. I'm 100% against Sharia law. Again, I don't believe in any of the religions. I think it's preposterous, and I'm not going to follow the laws of what you think God might have told someone a couple of thousand years ago. But it is a free country, and Sharia law has a lot of different interpretations, including their rules on family matters like divorce. So I'm not going to strip them of their culture or their heritage or their religion, because that's an un-American thing to do. Here in America, we allow freedom of religion. That's part of what makes this country great.
Richard, I'm going to let you go to move on to Diane, because you had a good amount of time. Upper Darby, PA, independent caller. Hi, Diane.
Hi, how are you today?
Good morning. How are you?
My question has to do with the Democrats. I'm hearing a lot of knocking against the Democrats, which I don't understand. If you're watching any of this, or if you're experiencing anything, they seem to be the only ones that care about what is happening to this country and trying to keep some semblance of sanity in our government. Now, nobody is perfect, but I can't understand why they're being knocked so badly when they're the only ones fighting, besides Bernie Sanders, for the American rights.
Yeah.
I'd like an answer to that, because I'm very distraught about this.
Thanks, Diane.
Thank you, Diane. And look, I'm really glad you brought that up, because this is a very important distinction. I love Democratic voters because you guys have no horse in the race. It's not like you want the institutional corruption. You don't want it. You have your You have I think, the right ideology. I'm with you 100%, and we're trying to serve you guys without the corruption. Now, if you're, again, Bernie Sanders, great candidate. And you know what? In a lot of local and state officials that are Democrats, wonderful, have not been corrupted by the system, et cetera, and they got into politics for all the right reasons. I know someone in Maine who was ran a cash register, and then she just cares about her community. They all know her. So I don't want you to be overly cynical about your local and state Democrats, and certainly not about the Democratic voters. But when you talk about national Democrats, Diane, I got bad news for you. They have been systemically corrupted by the money, not because they're bad people, but because they have to run these races that cost millions of dollars, now up to hundreds of millions of dollars. And so they think, well, I need the bankers, I need the big drug companies, I need the oil companies. And Diane, you don't know it. I've been here and I've covered it for over 20 years. They say that routinely, and then they go and vote in favor of those giant multinational corporations because that's where their money comes from. That's what we're trying to end, so that they actually serve you instead of those donors.
Moving on to Tracy now in Minneapolis, Republican caller. Hi, Tracy.
Hey, Cenk. I used to watch you early on in 2007, 2008 on YouTube, and I really liked you back then, and you supported a lot of, a little bit of Ron Paul stuff, and then I think you leaned towards Obama, and you fell for that thing or whatever, but my question is, do you think we'd be in better shape right now as far as, like, our civil rights and war and everything if you would have supported Ron Paul? Because I think you had a lot of power back then, and I was disappointed that you went and fell for the Obama thing. And I think we're exactly where, in the same position we were with Bush or and Trump's going to do the same thing. But I thought Ron Paul was our only chance. I wanted to get your opinion on that.
Yeah. So, look, I appreciate the sentiment, and I appreciate that you thought I was powerful back in 07 and 08. If you thought that, wait till you get a load of what we're doing now. But, look, I got a ton of grief for saying all the things that Obama did wrong, from folks like Diane who are looking for people to fight for their cause and their side, et cetera. And a lot of people left the program because I started criticizing Obama relentlessly, because he took the same donations, he let Wall Street off the hook. So I'm totally aware. But at the end of the day, in general elections, you have to vote for one of the two candidates that you have. You have to be realistic. Now, when it comes to Ron Paul and the Libertarians, I love half of what you stand for: freedom, liberty, whether it's, hey, I get to do whatever I want with my body, or et cetera. Although a lot of libertarians are grossly hypocritical on that, because when it comes to being pro-choice and letting a woman do what they're, no, I want to let a man do what he wants with his body. Women don't get to decide. All of a sudden we're listening to Yahweh on what he thinks a woman should do with their body. So if you're a libertarian, you better be pro-choice, otherwise you're a total hypocrite. But anyway, more important than that, it's nihilism, guys. Keep it real. Look, liberty is the most important thing. That's why we're all Americans and we love America. But not paying any taxes and letting the rich basically destroy the government so that there's no regulation means there's no cops on the street. There's no cops on Wall Street. There's no cops to check any of these giant multinational corporations who are actually taking your liberty away. So, no, we can't have anarchy here, whether it's from the left or the right.
Jim at Twitter wants to know what you'd like to achieve instead of tossing hate Trump softballs. What do you want?
I'll tell you exactly what I want. I want to get money out of politics, because this money is corrupting the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and they're not serving us, and everybody knows it. You know what the percentage of American people that says money corrupts politics? 93%. Nothing in the country ranks higher than that, polls better than that, yet not one of these politicians, with the exception of Bernie Sanders, is actually making a real effort to get the money out of politics. They're hooked on it. They're hooked on that crack. So if we got the money out, we'd have honest debate. Then wouldn't that be wonderful? Then we could have ideological battles between Republicans and Democrats. That's not what we have now. We have patty cakes, and then at the end of the day, tax cuts for the rich.
On to Cedar Falls, Iowa, Democratic caller. It's Michael. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for taking the call.
You bet.
I was just noticing all this, anti-Democrat kind of talk and coming from the president, and we're not all against him. We're not all obstructionists like the Republicans over the past 8 years. We do want to work with him on good ideas, and we will fight him on bad ideas. I was wondering if you guys think that these independent voters who are kind of in the middle, what they're thinking about these past 100 days, what they're thinking about the Democrats, whether we're obstruction, because Trump has been able to fool a lot of people over the past 2 years. And I just wanted to know what you guys thought about that. Thanks.
Thank you.
So I think obstructionism is a talking point meant to get opposition out of the way. So if, and you're 100% right, if I agree with Donald Trump, why would I obstruct him? So for example, I do agree with him on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Don't like it. I think it's a giveaway of our sovereignty to multinational corporations. The American people aren't in favor of it. Great, fantastic. Let's work with Donald Trump on killing TPP, and we did, right? But if I don't agree with him, like his $7 trillion tax cut for the richest and most powerful people in the country, for the swamp, yeah, I'm going to fight him. I'm going to fight him 100%. I'm going to fight him 1,000%. Why the hell would I work with him on that? And by the way, you know who agrees with that? Independents. Independents don't want you to give away all of our money, take it from the middle class. It's a redistribution of wealth from the middle class to the very, very rich. So they look forward to us fighting on things like getting money out of politics, ending corruption, and getting jobs back. What happened to Trump and all this talk about jobs? Yet there's nothing about jobs. If he actually created jobs, if he actually did the $1 trillion infrastructure bill and it wasn't a giveaway to his construction friends, but actually rebuilt the infrastructure in America, made our water clean, then of course I'd work with him on that.
Michael at Twitter, what does the guest think? What do you think of Bernie Sanders' prominence right now in Democratic politics?
I think it's wonderful. So I think that the establishment Democrats have this little trap that they laid for real progressives in the country. They call it unity. Right? They say, okay, now, all right, everybody, unify. We're going to get rid of Trump, and we're going to go. They don't say the next part, but they mean it. We're going to go back to the status quo. Okay? We don't agree. So I have a great proposal for them right here on TV. Okay? Establishment Democrats, you know, unify. Then let's unify behind the most popular politician in the country. It's a deal. And that person is Bernie Sanders. He's polling at 61%. 80% of Democrats agree with him. You want to unify behind him? Let's do it. Then I love unity.
Silver Spring, Maryland, CC, independent caller. Hi there.
Yes, I just wanted to let him know that I've been watching him for a while on the internet and everything, and I just loved how the fact that you had to have him reiterate and explain about this thing about consulting class, and we used to, as kids growing up in the metropolitan area, we used to literally call it this. And the adults started calling it, and it started passing around. And they always, because the parents talk shop and the adults always talk shop, and they always called it the consulting class. And I just wanted to give a shout out to him. Thank you for putting that out there, because we've been thinking that for like decades, and we just love it. And I just thought that was funny that he had to explain it to you what he really meant by that. So, thank you,
CC. Thank you.
Yeah, look, thank you for the backup, and thank you for watching. And you don't often hear it on TV here in Washington, because almost everybody here is friends with the consulting class. Remember, if you're a U.S. congressman or a senator, you almost certainly had one of those consultants consult for your campaign. So you're not likely to go on TV and go, oh yeah, the guy who's ripped you off, my donors ripped me off, and took all the money and made it and put it towards the most expensive and least efficient thing there is. Of course they're not going to say that. You need an outsider like me to be able to I hope, speak truth to power on that.
Your reaction to something else in Mother Jones. The Young Turks really, really don't want you to compare them to Breitbart. And yet, they write, this is from late March, Cenk Uygur bristles at the notion that the progressive media company he co-founded more than a decade ago, the Young Turks, is becoming the Breitbart of the left. That is a pugilistic news outlet waging an ideological war with the establishment class. If you ask him, the comparison is backward. Tell us more.
Yeah, so are we very clear about our ideology? I mean, if you've been watching it all here, it's of course. And we don't hide that, and we're not dishonest. For example, CNN, do they have a bias? Of course they do. It's not a liberal bias, it's not a conservative bias, it's an establishment bias. They're owned by a multi-billion-dollar corporation. If they don't want us rocking the boat, because it's their boat. So on the other hand, the comparison to Breitbart is terrible, because there's a giant, giant difference. They lie, we don't lie. I would hope that that's a big distinction that matters a lot. And you know, then you get into the fact that they promote white supremacy, and all we want to do is put the voters back in charge. So that comparison, I get it. It's okay, we both have clear ideologies, but it doesn't make it equal.
One last call. Adam from Dallas, Texas, Republican caller. Hey, Adam.
Hey, am I on?
You are.
Oh, boy. Hey, well, first of all, C-SPAN is a national treasure, and I just thank you guys so much for what you do, and I watch you every day for sure.
Glad to have you. You make the show for us. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I've also watched the Young Turks. I just have to say I really appreciate one of the first shows I've seen that highlight police brutality, and not even talking about just minorities, but, just in general. Very quickly, I haven't heard Citizens United yet, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on, if we're going to drain the swamp, don't we first need to change the law? Thank you very much.
Thanks for calling.
Well, I mean, couldn't be happier that you brought that up. By the way, it's not just Citizens United. It's Buckley v. Vallejo. It's Bellotti. These are decisions that were made in 1976 and 1978 with preposterous claims that no actual American believes in, that corporations are human beings. They have the constitutional inalienable rights endowed by their creator with natural rights. That's preposterous. No one that isn't bribed by a corporation actually believes that. So second of all, they say, well, since they're human beings, they have a constitutional right to freedom of speech, and money is speech. Really? Money is speech? So I guess prostitution is legal now. You're just talking to them, right, when you give them the money. Preposterous. And then they say, oh, yeah, when you give millions of dollars to a politician, that's not bribery. It doesn't give you even the appearance of a conflict of interest. Are you kidding me? No actual American believes that. So yes, we have to get rid of Citizens United. How do you do it? There's only one way, because it's a Supreme Court decision. Got to go above the Supreme Court, a constitutional amendment. Wolf-pac.com. Wolfpack fights for a constitutional amendment. We fight for it vigorously and with a fierce urgency of now. The way that you get that is not through this corrupt Congress, but through a convention that the states call, and then they propose an amendment, and then you ratify it with 38 states. People think an amendment's not doable. That's not true. Every generation of Americans has done a constitutional amendment. It's our turn. We've got to get rid of the corruption and get back to free and fair elections.
Cenk Uygur is host of the Young Turks and is a founder and CEO of the TYT Network. Thanks a lot for coming back to the table and joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul. Really appreciate it.
We have just under an hour left in this Sunday edition of the Washington Journal.